Hi David, this is Module 2. Can you tell us what this is about?
Yeah, this is really about looking at the risks that might be involved if you were to enter into an ISPA and how you might go about limiting or reducing those risks.
And why is it important?
Well, it's important because there are a number of variables in this contract which could end up being very expensive for your organisation or indeed very difficult to manage. Your board needs to take an overall view of the sort of obligations the organisation is taking on and needs to take a very broad assessment of the risks, and particularly for voluntary sector organisations where this sort of major contract may be quite a new departure for them.
So, what are the major risks associated with the ISPA?
Well, there are a number of risks. One is that people might transfer to your organisation under TUPE and have valuable rights, which might make it very expensive to make them redundant if you ever had to. Another one is that although there's a fixed 3-year term of the contract, there are various ways in which it could be terminated early. And another one is that there are very many ways in which the contract could change. So, for example, the service levels can change on just 3 months' notice.
So TUPE, what are the risks there?
Well, there are a few risks. One is that you may find that people come in to you with their existing terms and conditions which may be better than those you would ordinarily offer to new joiners, for example. Another one is that if you ever had to make redundancies, either because the volume of the service is dramatically reduced or because you get to the end of the contract and there's no TUPE transfer to somewhere else, you may find these people are quite expensive to make redundant.
And then what about services?
Well, one big risk is that there's no guaranteed volume of service. Another issue is that certain things can be changed on 3 months' notice, including the service levels, that's effectively the quality of service you have to deliver, and also the service credits, which is a sort of penalty that if you don't deliver to the right level, you can be penalised through the charges you receive.
So volume, that means the number of people coming through your organisation. So how can that change?
Well, that can change very dramatically up or down, so that's a real challenge in terms of the level of your staffing you need to keep in place to be able to react to those possibly very different volumes of service.
And then what are the risks that arise because of ISPA's fixed 3-year term?
Well, there are a number of issues, some related to the way you price the service, so you should factor in a sort of inflation protection in your pricing and also factor in the right to change your prices if, say, legal changes mean that you have to increase your costs of operating. Also, because it's a 3-year minimum term, and if you find that this is a very expensive contract to run, you are of course locked in, and that could really cost you quite a lot as an organisation.
So the Ministry of Justice have been quite open about their need to reduce costs over the next 10 years. Is that likely to affect these contracts?
Well, it may do, because changes that happen at the top level with the Tier 1s can be passed down to the Tier 2s. And I think it just reinforces that Tier 2s have to be very robust in the way they negotiate the pricing and try to give themselves some protection in terms of either inflation or other factors that might increase their costs.
But of course there are also times when the contract might terminate early. What are the risks then?
Well, you may have a number of arrangements that follow on from that. One is that you may have redundancy costs with your staff. Another is you may have used some subcontractors and you'll need to terminate those subcontracts quite flexibly and quickly. You may also have your own office premises on a lease which may need to be terminated quite quickly, so you'll need break rights to get yourself out of that lease quickly. And you may have arrangements with other people like cleaners of your offices, where again, ideally you want flexibility to terminate those arrangements as quickly as possible.
So if an organisation is thinking of entering a contract, what does it need to do?
Well, they need to make sure they've done a really thorough job on evaluating all the risks. Secondly, they need to try and negotiate to get the best deal they can on the key risks they've identified. Thirdly, they need to think about whether this is an appropriate situation for setting up a new trading subsidiary, perhaps to isolate the risk and run the contract through that, or possibly enter into some sort of collaboration with another organisation. And finally, think about insurance, but bear in mind that insurance is not really designed to help you with an intrinsically bad deal. It's there for certain specific purposes and it will have its own limitations and exclusions.